What's up, Conference USA fans? Welcome into CUSA Insider, the official podcast of Conference USA. I'm Josh Jonas, running it solo today. Unfortunately, Sarah Rudolph is at home with a sick child today. You know how it happens for all you parents out there. But I will be taking on the show by myself today, so forgive me if it might be a little rocky as a solo host on the video side of things now. But we have so much going on today. Really just want to dive right into all the sports we have going on. You know, there's that one day a year where all the professional sports just kind of fall on the same day. I feel like that's the last week or two for Conference USA right now with cross country, football, volleyball, soccer, men's, women's basketball getting underway. There's just so much awesome stuff going on right now around the league. Just to get started, we'll talk cross country. We had an amazing cross-country championship a couple weeks ago. We talked about that on last week's show, but our teams will be back racing in the NCAA regionals tomorrow. So best of luck to all of our teams participating in those events across the various regionals. And then volleyball, congratulations to WKU on securing their 6th consecutive CUSA championship. And for those of you keeping tally at home, after their 2 wins at Sam Houston, they are up to 90 consecutive CUSA wins. So just an incredible feat for WKU. The Tops also grabbed the number 1 seed in next week's volleyball championship, while UTEP has remained right on their tail at 14-2 and has earned the number 2 seed. But after that, that's where things get real interesting. We have 5 teams separated by 3 games after that. And then you got a couple teams still in the race for that final number 8 seed. So lots to be decided as we head into the final matches. Those will be today and tomorrow. So by the time some of you watch this, we may have even released our bracket. But follow along for all the excitement. Our bracket, like I said, should be coming out tomorrow, Friday evening, following the last regular season matches. And as a reminder, that championship will be taking place next week, November 22nd to 24th in El Paso, hosted by UTEP. All matches will be streamed live on ESPN+, so mark your calendars for all that action coming up. And then also, like I mentioned, we are in full swing with hoops right now. Shout out to the ladies, women's basketball and Conference USA. How about this? They are 19-7 as a league right now, the 5th best non-conference winning percentage in the nation. They are the tops among non-power conferences as well. So everyone's got to win. We're picking up some great wins over some, fellow competitors in other leagues. So, and then on the men's side, we're kind of seeing what is expected to be an extremely competitive conference race starting to shape up. You have 3 teams that have started the year 3-0 with Liberty, Middle Tennessee, and Louisiana Tech. So, some incredible wins for those programs to start the year, and really excited, obviously, as we go through conference play, all the various MTEs, and as we get into conference play in January, should be a lot of fun. But moving on to women's soccer, we have a special interview coming up with head coach of the regular season and conference tournament champion FIU Panthers. Head coach Jonathan Garbar will be joining us to talk the incredible run for the Panthers and the experience of winning a conference championship on their home pitch. The Panthers are preparing for their first NCAA tournament appearance on Friday. It'll be their first NCAA appearance since 2011 against Auburn at 6 p.m. Central. But Coach was gracious enough to take some time out of his preparation to speak with us. So here's our conversation with Coach Garbar. All right, joined now by FIU head coach Jonathan Garbar from Auburn, Alabama, as they prepare for their first round contest in the NCAA tournament. Coach, thank you so much for taking time out of your preparation to talk with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Josh. Pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Well, let's just start with last week. You had the chance to not only host the CUSA Women's Soccer Championship, but ended up hoisting the trophy at the end of it on your home pitch. What was that experience like for you and your program?
Yeah, I mean, it was very special, obviously. I mean, this is, I think, a process that's been a couple of years in the making. Anyone who knows anything about FIU soccer knows that when we first started, we were the program was in a pretty tough spot. Hadn't earned any real success for over a decade, and we had a lot of work to do. And I'm just very proud of the fact that our first recruiting class, the players that came in when our staff first came in, were the players that were able to drive the program to the level of success where we could earn 2 championships and earn the tournament championship on our home field. That was special for them, special for our fans, for all the people that have been with us in the beginning. I think anyone who's been around a program that's needed to be built from the ground up just understands that those moments are the kind of moments really that you live for. They really are. So yeah, it was just a beautiful experience and in the culmination of 3.5 years of a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, so you being in year 4 there at FIU, obviously you had a huge stride last year and then even more so this year. Just talk me through the development of this program that you've seen and worked for the last couple of years and just how rewarding it was to really see it come to fruition with this campaign.
Yeah, Josh. I mean, for me, what I enjoy most about coaching, honestly, is developing programs, and I believe it begins with developing people, myself included. I think, we were very firm when we first arrived that we understood that things needed to change and change at a fundamental level. So what we really did was we just did, I guess, to put it lightly, some excavating of the program. And that's a nice way of saying demolishing a lot of elements of the program. And just laying a foundation that was going to be, that would really set the pathway for us to be able to do the things that are required to be able to develop people. I think we recruited really great people and players with a tremendous amount of upside that we identified. They may have not been the players that were most highly sought after, but we saw things in them that we think that people maybe were missing when they were looking at them. And players who had a chip on their shoulder and who really wanted to be part of building something, putting a name on something. Once we were able to lay the cultural foundation and the non-negotiables of how we were going to treat ourselves and treat the program, that's when we were able to really begin to lay out for our players the non-negotiables in terms of our principles at play, who we wanted to be our identity, so to speak, as a program. And we wanted that identity to be one that people would notice immediately from watching us on the pitch, not just hearing us talk or the gear that we wore, but how we approached and how we executed our principles in play in competition. And I think over each semester, we just were very steadfast in what we were looking for, and it meant the first 2 years we were going to have to take lumps. So I know people might have been thinking early on, well, I don't really see any changes. Well, anyone who's been around a program knows that the changes most people look for are simply wins and losses, and that's not going to change when you're a bottom 15 in the country. You're not going to all of a sudden start winning games. There's Pep Guardiola's not coming through the door. So I think the reality is that we just needed to be very steadfast and firm, and we had the support of the most important people around us, and understanding that this is going to take time, and we're going to approach that time with real purpose. And I think for us to be able to do what we did during this period of time, and frankly keep our word, we made it very clear each year was a different level of progress. Last year was the competitive phase where we were expecting to earn results. But we knew we weren't a championship-ready team yet, and this year was a championship phase. And we wanted to speed up the process a little bit because we wanted our first-year players to really be able to experience going for trophies. And and we were able to do that. And that's why I think it's been so rewarding, not simply because of the trophies, but because we're with the people that really were the ones who showed the most loyalty and showed the most commitment from early on, and they're the ones who burned it the most.
Yeah, that's awesome. In terms of developing players, I think the biggest growth that the nation has seen has been forward Noemi Paquin. And I was just saying to someone in our office before we got on here, I was like, I knew that she was a first-team all-conference player last year when I was still covering soccer, but just to see her go from that level to the threat that she has become as a goal scorer this year, just what has been the key to her success and what really kind of drove that jump that she made in 2024?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think there's two main things. One is, and it's not going to be the flashiest or most exciting answer, but she just developed into a player that understood the importance of outworking the opposition. There's no question. She's a goal scorer. She's a killer. But so much of that comes from the pressure that she and her teammates are able to put on the opposing team. And she's become, in my opinion, one of the best pressing forwards in the conference. I think she's the best pressing forward in the conference in practice. Her work rate, her pace, her instincts, and her willingness to get into the kind of tackles that most forwards aren't willing to get into. That's really been something I think a lot of people have overlooked. Once your most, talented players become your hardest workers and become committed to the duels, the dual side of the game, man, like now you're ready to really see what they're capable of and what your team's capable of. And I think on the other side of things, I just think that Noemi has, she's been challenged in a number of ways from her coaches as well as from her teammates. And her mentality is one that really developed in terms of she became very, very, I would say, committed to the craft of not just becoming a goal scorer, but being a multidimensional player. She's willing to come in to find the ball. She's willing to get in behind. She's willing to combine. She's now more involved in our set pieces. She's just become so much more multidimensional in her approach, moment to moment in game. A lot of goal scorers, you find that they're very stubborn in one or two different elements that they expect need to happen for them to be able to do what they want to do. Normally, you'll find a myriad of ways to hurt you. And I think what we did, which was helpful, was I think that we made it really clear amongst us as a staff that we have to get the most out of where Noemi is now in her development. And while she's more accustomed to playing as a 10, as a winger, we thought that by playing her a bit as a false 9 and kind of structuring the team in a way that could bring out the best in her, because now her work rate is what it is, and because she's now tactically so much more astute, particularly in the American style of football. I think those decisions were mostly coupled with, her commitment to the elements of the game that most players kind of shy away from. I think that's really been what's unlocked her goal scoring and just the influence she has on the game itself.
Outside of Noemi and some of the other core players that you had mentioned that have been with the program for multiple years now and have seen the growth, who have been some of the other, the biggest difference makers to the team that have come in and really, push this team to the next level?
Yeah, you have Reagan Bridges, who's, the most dominant center back in our conference. She's a ball-playing center back. She's a ball-winning center back. She's cerebral. She leads. She's tremendous on set pieces. She's just, her development to me has been very much aligned with the development of Noemi. They both come from very different backgrounds, but their trajectory has been similar. I think you look at players, who have been with us for, from the beginning. You look at a Criminal Sadi Rule, you look at Nicole Solis, Belinda Saline, all these players and their development from year one to now has really been special and frankly pretty rare in the NCAA these days. A lot of players, for a lot of reasons, they jump from program to program, or they get moved around a lot. They kind of struggle to find their way, or they kind of start to peter out in the second or third year of their development. They get overtaken by number in that pressure model of player. And that's not what's happened. But they continue to drive the standards of our program and the quality of the program. And even when we brought in other great players, we have obviously we're not very transfer heavy, but we've brought in a few transfers that we really believed in. Zora Jackson, Eli Rapp. And you look at their ability to be able to bring their qualities, but also the way that our core players like Kathleen Rapp, Deborah Bienami, they really created an environment in which these newer players that have come in who have really helped Monsignor and Dynamite have a great season for us. They're walking into a scenario where, okay, our identity is very, very clear and it's quite fixed, but your ability to be able to express yourself and navigate your place within those foundations are wide open. And because of those players like Catherine, Deborah, and Camilla, and Noemi, all these players, Isdell, these players that have come in have been able to really just jumpstart really their development, which where they were really good, but they've taken the next step since they've gotten to us. But they just have. Zora Jackson, Monson, and Eli, they're at a different level now. And so much of that is because of both their commitment and their open-mindedness to what we're doing here and their attachment to it. It's also because of the leadership of the players who really created the core here.
What has been the team's mantra, if any, this year that has really helped the group kind of band together as you made the run to the tournament championship?
Yeah, so our mantra from the very beginning, when we first laid the foundation, was hard and smart. I know it sounds very simplistic, but we know that we're not going to be the biggest team. That's not what we build a team around. We also know that we're not going to be physically the most imposing team, but we expect to be, for lack of a better word, spiritually the most imposing team. We're going to win our duels. We are going to get into, we're going to high press you. We're going to win the counter pressing battle. We want to get into physical battles. We look forward to those types of moments. So the hard part of it is both, not just the acceptance of the fact that our style of play requires us to be gritty, but we like it. We enjoy it. We look forward to it. And for a team that is as smart as our players are, the smart piece of it is our ability to be able to outthink our opponent, our ability to be able to adjust, our ability to be able to be multidimensional throughout the game, to adapt to both controllables and non-controllables. I think our players do a tremendous job of being thinkers. And part of that, obviously, the training that they go through, and part of it also is just their love and their curiosity, their commitment to wanting to grow and wanting to get better, and enjoying being able to outthink their opponent. So it's the hard and smart piece. A lot of teams that you see that look physically hard and spiritually hard struggle a bit to be able to break teams down with the ball. They're quite one-dimensional. And other teams that are very cerebral and very intelligent and really quality on the ball and are able to, they're technically very sound, and even their decision-making is very, very keen, but they don't really have that grittiness to them. They can be bullied around the pitch quite a bit. And in our level, you can close many passes as you want in your own half, but eventually you don't know how to break. You're not willing to get into a second ball. Eventually the ball's going to be taken, and you need to win the counter-pressing battle. If you can't win those battles, I don't care how cool you look moving the ball around the back, you're going to get scored on. So I just think our team is very unique in that way. This particular season, we really focused on the idea of being dangerous. Everything that we do, we want to be dangerous in everything that we do. We want to be dangerous behind the ball. We want to be dangerous with the ball. We want to be dangerous in set pieces. We want teams to fear us, when they step on the pitch and when they're done playing us. And I think that being dangerous is something that, unfortunately, we don't instill enough in our athletes, particularly in the women's game. And I think that it's really important for our athletes to understand how dangerous they can be in and out of possession. And there's no malice behind that. And we're never looking to be malicious or hurt anyone. But it's really just being able to play a brand of football that is both beautiful and also, intimidating. And I think that you can mesh those concepts together. And that's what we've tried to do this season.
How much more important is that mentality and those philosophies become as you prepare for this matchup against Auburn?
It's everything. I mean, we're going to have to be the best of ourselves in this type of match. We understand that. We're not naive to the fact that, there's a reason why Conference USA schools are perennially, been challenged in this tournament. The level of program that we typically get matched up in our conference is the best of the best. And we understand that. And Auburn is going to be athletically very imposing. They've got a couple of tremendous footballers. They play against the level of competition consistently, which is always going to take you to the brink. But that doesn't change the fact that we wholeheartedly believe that we're going to earn the result tomorrow night. We believe that because when we are at our best, hard and smart, we're always in a position to be able to be successful. So I'm focusing mostly right now on our performance. The result's going to take care of itself. Both teams are going to be great, but we really believe that if we're able to outmatch them with the hard, regardless of how much bigger, how much faster some of them are, as long as we can also be smart in terms of how we approach the game positionally, where we're willing to sacrifice certain areas of the field, which area of the field we're going to plant the flag and say, nope, you can't have this. If we can be smart in those respects, both be humble, but also be confident, I expect us to perform at a very high level, because I think we've been really performing well. I think we were doing this throughout the season. We started to have to work some things out, and some teams started to figure us out a little bit, and we had to adapt and adjust. And I think we also, whenever you have a team that is experiencing that level of success for the first time, how you respond to that level of success is also a challenge. And that starts with me. But we've now been able to take that next step and put a couple of really great performances together. As long as we continue on that track, we're gonna have a great time tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, I'm fired up for it just listening to you here. But best of luck tomorrow night. It was 6 p.m. Central Time against Auburn. You can catch Coach Garbar and the FIU Panthers. Coach, thanks again.
Yeah, Josh, thank you.
Thanks again to Coach Garbar for, again, taking time out of his preparation for a huge match tomorrow against Auburn to speak with us about the season so far. But like I said, a lot going on. Let's go ahead and get into some football and talk some of our games from last weekend. We're going to skip around a little bit because I think we have to get to the game of the week, if not the game of the year, between Jacksonville State and Louisiana Tech. We're going to bring in, with me being by myself up here, we're going to bring in Dane Lewis, our producer extraordinaire, to kind of help, bounce some things off and talk some of our games from last week. But man, again, this Jacksonville State Louisiana Tech game was an incredible one, as expected. Obviously, we kind of talked about it being the game of the week, just from the slate that we had in Week 11. I have not been able to stop watching this Hail Mary on loop since Saturday evening. I know that everyone has seen this just plenty, and I'm sorry for Louisiana Tech fans for putting this in your eyeballs again, but Tyler Huff heaving it downfield, and somehow, someway, Cam Vaughn comes out and hauls that one in for the game-tying touchdown. Just absolutely chaotic stuff. Number one on SportsCenter Top 10 plays. It was the Pop-Tarts Crazy Good Play of the Week. And if that wasn't chaotic enough, then Jacksonville State turns around and misses the potential game-winning extra point. But luckily for the Gamecocks, end up winning it in overtime on Trey Stewart's second score of the night. So obviously the talk of this one will be the Hail Mary, but we see here, Trey Stewart just trucking up the middle, a quick score, and then the defense takes care of business on the ensuing drive against the Bulldogs here. But yeah, I mean, let's shine some light on this Jacksonville State defense as well. An incredible performance by Fred Perry, 14 tackles, 7 solo stops, 2.5 tackles for loss, and a strip sack. And then that man, J-Rock Swain, coming up with the biggest play of the game, taking down Evan Bullock there to seal it. He finished with 2.5 tackles for loss in this one. So Gamecocks keep their winning streak going at 6 games now, take another steps towards potentially playing in a CUSA championship game in just their second year in the conference. But while that one was going on, we had another overtime contest, a double overtime thriller in the Sun Bowl between UTEP and Kennesaw State. Skylar Locklear, in his return to the field after missing a couple games with a concussion, willed this team to victory. He had career highs in completions, yards, passing touchdowns, and on top of that, got our Offensive Player of the Week award. But just the way he was able to extend plays and deliver some amazing passes to his guys was really impressive. Again, given the circumstances of him returning to the field this week. But Kenny Odom continued to be a favorite target for Locklear, hauling in 3 of his 4 touchdown passes, including the game winner here, toe tapping in the end zone, getting the Miners the win. And then again, just Locklear's ability to extend plays and manage to find a guy downfield here. Here's the 2-point conversion that really wins it for him. But we got to give credit where credit was due. I mean, obviously there was a lot here to talk about with the offense for UTEP. But on the other side of the ball, Kennesaw State had season highs in points and yards, but this UTEP front just continued to give opponents headaches to the tune of 10 tackles for loss in this one. But we've talked about some of the crazier games. We'll kind of jump back to the start of the day. We had Liberty in Middle Tennessee. This one started a little rocky for the Flames, had a couple turnovers, but kicked it into gear, went on to finish with 500 yards of total offense, including 339 on the ground, led by the star duo of Caden Salter and Quentin Cooley. And Dane, again, apologize, I skipped you on the first couple of games here, but I want to, just talk about how needed this victory was for Liberty.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of it is they got their stars involved. I mean, you look at Salter and Cooley, what they did last year, their ability to get back on track and get those two heavily involved in the game early and often, I think truly paid dividends for the Flames in this game. And now the Flames are officially going bowling, joining the likes of schools like Sam Houston, Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State. So the cream of the crop of the conference, all now bowl eligible, it seems. And maybe, we'll see the Flames finish the year pretty strong. I know they've kind of had a rocky middle, but this was certainly a promising game, especially offensively for the Flames, for them to get back on track.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, yeah, the Liberty offense obviously was firing on all cylinders on this one, but it was a great day for the Liberty defense as well. And they really targeted a big weakness in the Blue Raiders in that offensive line. It resulted in 8 tackles for loss and 5 sacks. So, but I think the biggest key in this one, 5 penalties by the Flames. I know that this is something we've talked about has kind of been hampering their offense throughout the season, but they were much more disciplined. And, look what happened.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, if you can be disciplined, your chances of winning games go up a ton, and the Flames carried that out on Saturday, so huge win for them.
Yep. And then we finished the night with WKU staying undefeated in league play with a 41-28 victory against New Mexico State. This one was a little closer than the score indicates when you look at how the Aggies came out of halftime with a couple quick scores to make it a 3-point game up until the final minute of the third quarter. But the story in this one, 5 New Mexico State turnovers that resulted in 20 points for the Hilltoppers. And, while we don't have, we talk a lot about Sam Houston's defense, Louisiana Tech's defense. I mean, they're going to be your stereotypical, stopping you up front, just, breaking passes up, whatever. When we look at Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky, both these teams are very similar in that we know what to expect from them on offense. But on defense, they may not necessarily, it's very bend, don't break. But what they're going to do is they're going to create mayhem. And that's going to be, turnovers, just, and then with WKU, I mean, obviously the biggest storyline this year, has been in the red zone. So, again, we talk about what, the identity of this WKU team is. It obviously includes a high-powered offense, which was on display again with Caden Veldkamp, but it also includes that ability to, they call themselves the takeaway tops. So, I mean, how important do you think it is for, you look at the 2 teams that I just mentioned that are tied for first place right now, that they have that ability to have big plays on both sides of the ball?
It's massive. And I think, especially this late in the season, you want to have those defenses that can make those big plays for you. And obviously, I don't want to look too far ahead, but potential championship matchup, WKU, Jacksonville State. I think on paper, that matchup could be similar to last year's championship between Liberty and New Mexico State, where it's just touchdowns back and forth. And ultimately, you can look back. But the Flames that game is they got an interception, in the middle of the fourth quarter that turned the tide and finally kept New Mexico State out of the end zone, where it's, hardly any punts in that game. And it was an interception in the second half that eventually led to Liberty winning the championship. So if you can have a defense that, even if they do give up, touchdowns, field goals, whatever, if they give up points, if they can make a few big plays, especially late in the game, that can be the difference maker. And so it's huge to see that from both of these teams at this point in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just looking ahead to that potential matchup, you talk about how razor thin that margin of error is going to be for both of those offenses against 2 defenses that are tied for the CUSA lead and are tied for, I believe, 14th nationally in turnovers forced. So, we'll see. I mean, these are the last couple weeks where you have to, shore some of those things up, and you really learn a lot more about some of these teams as you begin to prepare for whoever will be in this championship game. We have no idea. It could be up until November 30th that we know who's in it or where we're going or any of it. But that's just the beauty of having, some great parity among the league and apparently some strategic scheduling with putting some amazing matchups here in the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season. So we'll kind of run through quickly some of the upcoming games this Saturday. Another big one coming up. We'll start with another linear contest as WKU hosts Louisiana Tech at 11 a.m. Central on CBS Sports Network. So, I mean, the question here is going to be, can Louisiana Tech threaten another one of the Conference USA leaders? As these contests continue to heat up, the national audience gets another good one here. I think similarly to last week, it's the story of a potent offense against a stingy defense. Last week, it was Jacksonville State against Louisiana Tech. This week, it's WKU against Louisiana Tech. But I think where it differs is that where Jacksonville State is a lot more, they're run first, they're run heavy against that Louisiana Tech front that we've talked about week in, week out is very strong in that regard. Fortunately, the passing defense, not so much. I mean, that's somewhere where they've gotten a little bit more exposed by some opponents recently. So I think if, WKU can just play WKU football, this should be another one that they, stay perfect in Conference USA play and take another step towards a Conference USA championship appearance. But, I think the one thing that I will say from last week's matchup between Jack State and Louisiana Tech is Jack State was able to get enough going in the pass game, even though that they lean on the run. I think on the flip side this week is, can WKU get enough on the run game to kind of balance out and allow the pass game to develop against this Louisiana Tech defense? But we'll all find out at 11 a.m. Central on CBS Sports Network. Also at 11 a.m. Central on ESPN+, we've got Liberty traveling to UMass for its final non-conference game. Obviously, like we talked about, Flames bounced back with a big offensive output against Middle Tennessee. I think that they should replicate that against a struggling UMass team, get another win, and then as they get ready to face kind of a gauntlet in the last couple weeks of conference play. Jack State hosts FIU at 1 p.m. Central on ESPN+. The Gamecocks have all sights set on that potential championship game matchup between them and WKU. And like I said, in just its second year in the league, which would be pretty incredible. Frankly, I don't think this is a good matchup for the Panthers. They've been prone to mishaps on offense, and like I just got finished saying, Jacksonville State will make you pay for mistakes on the defensive side for the Gamecocks. But going, I do think that for this Jack State offense, it's going to have to work to get down the field. The last time out, FIU held New Mexico State to just 12 yards passing, which it doesn't matter how, if you don't feel like you have a great pass game, 12 yards passing is not a great day. But if they are not able to get big plays, which is something FIU does not give up a lot of, they may have to work to kind of get into the red zone. But again, I really like Jacksonville State in this one to stay perfect and take another step towards a potential big postseason matchup. The afternoon slate continues with Sam Houston at Kennesaw State at 2 p.m. Central on ESPN+. Going back to something we said a couple weeks ago, if Sam Houston wants to keep itself in this title race, we talk a lot about WKU and Jack State, but there's still a couple other teams that are still very much alive if some things happen here down the stretch. But if Sam Houston wants to stay in that race, we have got to see more from Hunter Watson and the Bearcat offense. I think that, they might be able to skate by against Kennesaw State with just a couple scores on the board. I think that, Kennesaw State having some, we'll just kind of leave it at off-field distractions right now, but against this Sam Houston defense that has really just, been bearing down on its opponents. Again, I think you could get by in a low-scoring affair in this one, but when you look at the schedule that they have, they got to play Liberty and Jack State in the final 2 weeks of the season. You've got to be able to put up points to try and get into that conference championship game. So if they can do what they did offensively in the first half of the season, we really like their chances in the last few weeks here, but obviously really like their chances against Kennesaw State. But I will say, we talked about this in our external meeting on Tuesday, there's just kind of an odd trend of anytime a program loses its head coach, they go out there with a little extra fire in them that following week, and I don't know what the record is exactly, but there have been a lot of wins in those cases. So we'll see how hungry the Owls are to kind of spin some things in their direction this week. But lastly, on Saturday, we've got an Aggie battle with New Mexico State going into Kyle Field to take on Texas A&M at 6:45 Central Time on SEC Network. Obviously, this New Mexico State team is on a much different trajectory from last year when they got the win over Auburn. But again, it's mid-November. They're playing at an SEC team. Who knows? And for those of you who are laughing, did anyone predict Vanderbilt to beat Alabama? No, exactly. So who knows? But find out again as we wrap up our Saturday slate for 6:45 Central on SEC Network. But we appreciate you guys for staying patient with me this week as I kind of roll through this alone. Luckily, I had Dane here to help me on everything to make this video version of the CUSA Insider podcast beautiful and to kind of chip in on some of our football content here. But friendly reminder to follow us. You can find video episodes on our YouTube channel at Conference USA. And if you're an audio listener, the podcasts are always available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. But once again, thank you. You've been listening to the CUSA Insider podcast, the official podcast of Conference USA. I'm Josh Jonas, signing off.